Alright, send me on a hunt. Come on, you have to want me to do something. Why are you talking to the ram? Well, this is Ramsgate. Is he not in charge here? No, he's just an animal. Oh, could I have a quest, please? Ladies, gentlemen, and hunters of all ages, let's have a brand new look at Dauntless. I've played this game various times over its 3 years of lifetime so far, with varying investment each time, and generally I've found it to be a pretty fun experience living up to the cycle of the genre of hunt cool thing, get its materials to make armor and weapons from it, hunt new cool thing, repeat, and there are quite a few behemoths to be found in Dauntless, and, well, the list of these keeps growing. With the current state of Monster Hunter being what it is, Monster Hunter 6 itself being long off on the horizon, not even close in sight as of yet, not even really announced, and only a 1 or 2 updates left for Sunbreak, you may be finding yourself feeling a little bit, left out, unsatisfied when it comes to that monster hunting itch for the rest of 2023. And so while you haven't seen Dauntless before, more than likely, you may have played Dauntless before even, I thought it would be a good time to talk about what has changed in the last year or so, because we've got this big gap for Monster Hunter, and answer the simple question, is Dauntless worth your time as a Monster Hunter player in 2023? Well, the short answer is yes, because this is a fun game to get your hands on, especially if you've never checked it out before. It has 7 weapons, each with their own unique feel that are, for the most part, notably different from things in Monster Hunter as well. As such, if you find yourself particularly enjoying any of the weapons in Dauntless, you might get a bit attached to it, as these weapons simply aren't the same anywhere else. Whether it be the explosive shotgun hammer, the dual pistols, the laser firing spear, or even the recently reworked chain blades, which is an important thing to mention, this weapon got a pretty hefty rework right at the end of 2021 that completely refreshed the feeling and made the weapon simply make sense. The biggest change to the weapon is that before the update, your gauge gaining was based on the damage that you dealt specifically, whereas afterwards it essentially is based on motion values. If your attack hits, you get a set amount of gauge that hit gets you, no matter how much damage it happens to do or not do. The result of this is you can plan your moves better, you can do combos with expectations of specific results, and that lets you beat the absolute daylight out of behemoths much better. On top of this, there is also of course the behemoths themselves, and currently there are 29 fully unique behemoths within the game, with a further 13 variations on those as well, some of which being a bit more tame, but more recently the game added the evolution mechanic which created the creature Fenroar. Before this behemoth was Spore-struck Embermane, simply a somewhat earth-modified version of Embermane, but this evolution mechanic was essentially a full rework of the creature to make it more of its own thing, give it more of its own identity, playing around with rock traps that actually can smush you between them, diving off of high rock platforms that it creates itself for diving attacks, and just entirely overhauling it into feeling like a whole new behemoth. On top of this, there are also 2 fully new behemoths and a couple of other variations added in the last year or so alone, and there is also one more behemoth that has been delayed for the time being, but is quite cool and unique simply because it was created with the community in a live stream. People have been coming up with ideas while talking with the devs, which led them to making concept art that has slowly been coming to life, which resulted in this sort of umbral, beetle, scorpion hybrid that should be quite fun to see in the game when that does happen. All of that to say that the game is still very much alive, it's still being added to relatively frequently, the weapons are being changed in a good way, they're not being left the way that they are, the behemoths are being changed, updated, and new ones are being added too, so things won't feel stale and there's always new stuff to experience even if you have played Dauntless in the past, but stopped for a period of time. Past that, there are also seasonal events, and the recent seasonal events seem to have had a bit more put into them as well as the previous ones, as both the recent winter event Frostfall and the current Easter event Springtide have given players a specific weapon to farm, one of which being a silver sword and the other being a golden pair of strikers, and then as you do more quests within the event, you upgrade the weapon further, and that seems like a pretty fun addition to the event system of this game to just make people a little bit more engaged. Past that, they also added a new escalation in the past year in the Radiant escalation. These are sort of like dungeons where you face tough behemoths back to back, matching the type of the area, gaining experience to spend on levels in between attempts until you're finally able to face the big challenge at the end, which is a massive powerful behemoth of that escalation's type, Alyra. I've not fought this creature myself yet, but for what I've seen, it lives up to the success of the other escalations they've done up until now as well, being a really fun fight attached to quite a unique game mode for a game of this type. On that note, we should also talk about the newest game mode that's been added to the game literally just recently, Gauntlet. This puts you in the ruins of the hub town Ramsgate and pits you against loads of behemoths, including even the bosses from the end of the escalations. It's sort of a horde zombie survival mode, but for a monster hunting game. You fight the behemoths as long as you can, new ones spawning as you kill the previous, and eventually they'll overwhelm you and you'll have to back out. A cool concept, an interesting way to change up gameplay pace and give you a different way to experience the game, and it provides a unique currency as well as an incentive to play it too.
Money!
So with that That said, there has been a ton of updates to Dauntless in the last year, even the last few months, and each and every time it seems to be quite meaningful, adding proper new fights, things to do, and sometimes entirely new ways to actually play the game. Currently, the question that I wanted to answer at the start of this is, with Monster Hunter having a bit of an off year in 2023, no new releases planned at all, and the title updates to Sunbreak dying down pretty soon, what do we spend our time on as fans of the monster hunting genre? A big part of what I'm here to say right now is that Dauntless is a really great choice. There's a ton of things to do, way more than I've even talked about, as I've mostly only even mentioned things that have changed in the last year. But this game has tons of content in it, it's generally quite fun. If there was one criticism I had to level at the game, it is simply the pace of the hunts is pretty extremely flinch driven in the endgame. By which I mean, when you flinch a behemoth, it gives you a massive window to deal damage, which then probably results in another flinch, and then so on and so forth until the behemoth dies. The gameplay sort of becomes, if you don't flinch something, it's hard. It's hard to survive, it's hard to avoid, and it's hard to get your damage in. But then the second that you do flinch it, you can sort of just chain stunlock it to death. This can be extremely satisfying, but it entirely depends on what you do and do not enjoy in these types of games. Some people like the feeling of the skill threshold of flinch locking something with their strongest combos and just beating it to death, but even then, what I've just said is entirely just a thing for endgame players and builds. It's not like you'll be walking around right out of the gate with a level 1 weapon and basic equipment and you'll flinch lock a behemoth to death. That comes with time and gear. Your first experience with every behemoth is special, and you'll have a lot of fun with that no matter what. That said, while I wanted to spend a lot of this talking about Dauntless, as it's just permanently active, permanently updating as a game that has been around for ages as well, the real concept of this conversation as a whole is what to do as a Monster Hunter player in the year 2023 with the lack of new Monster Hunter content that will be coming. And so I would be remiss if I didn't mention Wild Hearts as well. This recent game from Koei Tecmo has only been out for a couple of months, but I've had a hell of a good time with it since it has come out. Even since release, they've added a new variation of a kimono and a whole new kimono as well, and personally I've enjoyed my time with this game immensely. They've added a couple of new variations of kimono and a whole new kimono as well, and personally I've enjoyed my time with this game immensely. The biggest negative that it has, though, of course, is performance. It simply won't run for some people, it runs poorly for others, and while the devs are working on fixing this constantly, it's still not fully ironed out by any means. The gameplay is solid, the creatures are solid, the weapons are really damn fun to use, but the performance has sort of neutered the ability to say, hey, I think everyone should play this game. I believe there is still a sort of demo laying around for said game. I'd recommend trying it to see if your system can run it, and if it runs well, then the full game should go fine too. So that's where we're at overall then. With no Monster Hunter games releasing this year and Sunbreak sort of winding down its title updates, there is actually more things to do in this genre outside of Monster Hunter specifically than there ever has been in the past. Dauntless is absolutely worth giving a go in 2023, especially if you've never tried it before. It is literally free. You have absolutely nothing to lose by giving it a try. If you enjoy it, then you have a ton of things to do and enjoy, and if you don't enjoy it, then you have nothing to lose but a little bit of time. There is a lot of experience to have within the game, and so even those who have played it in the past have things to come back to, as it just is updating constantly. Then secondarily, if Dauntless isn't really doing it for you, you have Wild Hearts as an option too, and I think most, if not all of the people who've actually been able to give Wild Hearts a fair chance, the people who have surpassed its performance issues, would agree that it's an extremely strong entry into the hunting genre, and there's a ton of fun to be had within that game. At the end of the day, we're sort of spoiled for choice right now as hunting genre fans. This genre has never had this many prominent options available, and that can only be a good thing, especially as competition makes them all sort of strive to be better than the others, and thus the products that we get as players should simply get better and better as a result, which is just good for us. I hope you've all enjoyed this discussion, and you should absolutely check out these games in these sort of off-season of Monster Hunter. There is no better time to dive deep down into a whole new experience, and it's entirely possible you could find out one of these games just clicks with you and find a brand new love, maybe even something that you enjoy more than Monster Hunter. Like if you like the video, subscribe and hit the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.